Today on Inside Utah Politics, we're focusing in on Utah's 4th Congressional District. It's been a heated race between Representative Mia Love and Salt Lake County Mayor Ben McAdams. Both candidates are here to respond. Plus, Utah voters will soon settle a years-long battle in our state. Our panel will debate Proposition 3, which would expand Medicaid as intended under the Affordable Care Act.
Time now for Inside Utah Politics.
Good Sunday morning, and thanks so much for joining us for Inside Utah Politics. I'm Glenn Mills. We begin this morning with Representative Mia Love seeking a 3rd term in the 4th District. Representative Love, welcome back to the show. It's been a while.
I'm excited to be here.
All right, let's start with the re-election process.
Yeah. Obviously,
you have things you still want to do. So what led to the decision to seek another term?
Well, we've done a lot of good work for Utah's 4th District. I have worked really hard, including securing the release of Joshua Holt, voting for tax reform. But personally, I've passed 5 bills in the House of Representatives. And those are substantive bills, anywhere from stopping taxpayer obligation to perpetrators of sexual harassment, being able to help Juab with wildfires, you name it, bills that give people access more credit, access to credit. Those are the bills that we've passed. And to put it into context for you, my predecessor, for instance, spent 6 years in office and only passed, during that 6 years, passed one bill within that 6 years that he's been there, and that was to honor John Stockton. So it's very difficult to actually get bills passed through. Bernie Sanders, who's a big public figure, spent 16 years in the House of Representatives, passed one bill in the 16 years, and that was to name a post office. So we've done a lot of work, and we're proud of the work that we've done for the 4th District.
Where did you get those ideas for these bills that you've talked about? From constituents?
From constituents. If you remember the entire talk about what was happening, the culture of sexual harassment, I can even tell you one of my colleagues blames me, Blake Farenthold, for his leaving Washington. But I feel like it's important for members of Congress to be held responsible for their actions and not have the taxpayers pay for it. And I couldn't believe when I found out that there was this fund that was actually paying for these settlements that was paid for by the taxpayers. So I jumped in to a committee that I'm not even in and led the charge on making those changes.
Let's focus in a little on this specific campaign. I mentioned earlier it's heated. That might have been a nice way of putting it. Talk about what you're seeing from the opposition and your response to their claims.
Well, I guess I've been a little disappointed. We used to be in a day and time where we would talk about policies and we talk about different ideas, and I'm seeing this not just in this campaign but throughout the nation, this thirst for character assassination and win at all cost. And you know, I think that the voters deserve to know how people feel on certain issues, how people have been effective on certain issues. I have led so many charges out there that my voters wanted me to lead out on. And I think that we should talk about that. Those are the things we should talk about instead of some of the horrible things that we've seen out there that, frankly, are false and dishonest.
I do want to talk to you about one campaign point, and that being the money that was raised for the primary election. I've talked to you about this, run stories on it. You point to Senator Lee from 2016. But I want you to go further into detail about that because he actually had a declared candidate. You did not after.
And he dropped out before the convention.
Right. So explain why you feel like that still applies to you.
Every candidate has the legal right to raise in primaries and generals, regardless of whether they have a primary candidate or not, or whether they have a primary opponent or not. That's legal throughout the entire country. And so there was a routine question by the Federal Election Committee that was asked. The same question was asked of Chris Stewart, and we simply responded because Utah's got a very unique system. We're only using this system, the dual system, 2 times, and they want to know more about it. So that's what we did. And of course, there was a coordinated effort with the National Democratic Party, along with the McAdams campaign, that I am just saying flat out, I am disappointed because they are absolutely false and dishonest.
So by the time the FEC is done, you're confident that they will find no wrongdoing?
They're not even investigating it.
It's done at this point.
They're not even investigating it. There is nothing to investigate. Every single candidate has the right to raise primary and general funds. Imagine if Orrin Hatch had to wait 6 years before he found out whether he would have a primary candidate or not, and not be able to raise those funds during that time. You see, it's absolute nonsense, and you know, this is the sign of what we're seeing throughout the country.
Let's move real quick into some of the issues that voters are wondering where you stand. The tax reform bill, do you stand behind that bill now that it's had time to be implemented and what it's done so far?
I do. I stand behind that bill. When we were actually able to do tax reform 2, just before we left Washington, that made the individual tax cuts permanent and also helped our small businesses. We have seen how that's actually helped in the 4th District, people getting pay raises, low unemployment, higher wages, specifically so many people that are getting raises and are saving through their utility bills. And I will never apologize for giving people more money to take care of their families instead of pushing it to Washington.
What about the argument that this was beneficial more to the corporation than it was to the individual?
Well, you know, on a federal level, I mean, even my former opponent Doug Owens talked about lowering the federal corporate tax. We were not competitive on the global markets. Our companies were leaving our country. We had the highest federal corporate tax than any other industrialized nation in the world, and it was time to make America competitive and to make our businesses competitive. We have a lot to offer, and we want to make sure that we are giving as many people as many opportunities as possible. And remember, these are the same people that gave my dad 3 jobs in order to make ends meet. So we want to make sure that we're growing the economy, and that's exactly what tax reform did.
I have about 30 seconds left, but I want to get your thoughts on immigration reform. Does there need to be a clear path to citizenship for those that are in the country now?
Look, I think that if you are working hard, if you don't have a criminal background, if you either served in the military, educated here, just like my parents, you should be able to earn your right by law to be able to gain your citizenship. And I don't like this idea that there are 2 sets of Americans, some that have citizenship and some that will never be able to get it. I think that there are some false choices out there, and I do believe that we can actually have border security and have good immigration reform that helps, that shows what we are and how indicative of the American dream.
All right, we're coming down the stretch. I wish we had more time to get into more issues, but appreciate your time. Yeah, it goes by quick. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Glenn.
Coming up right after the break, we're going to check in with Democratic challenger Ben McAdams. Stay with us.